Imagine standing on a plain of salt so bright it hurts to look at, breathing air hot enough to make you feel ill, while the ground beneath your feet hisses and steams and glows in colors that do not belong on this planet. Neon yellow, acid green, rust orange, pools of liquid so sour they could dissolve metal, bubbling up beside fields of pure white salt, all of it baking under a sun that pushes temperatures past 45 degrees Celsius. If someone showed you a photograph of this place with no caption, you would guess it was another world. You would guess Mars, or one of the sulphur moons of the outer solar system. You would almost certainly not guess that it is here, on Earth, in the north of Ethiopia. This is the Danakil Depression. And by the end of this video, you will understand why scientists come here to practice looking for life on other planets, and why one of the biggest unanswered questions about this place is whether some parts of it are simply too extreme for anything to live at all. Let's start with where it sits, because the geography alone is extraordinary. The Danakil Depression lies in the Afar region of Ethiopia, in a place geologists call the Afar Triangle. It is one of the lowest points on the entire continent of Africa, sinking to around 125 meters below sea level. That is deep. Deep enough that the land is a kind of trap for heat. Hot air sinks into the basin and sits there, and the surrounding highlands wall out most of the cooling weather. The result is one of the hottest inhabited places anywhere on the planet, where the average temperature across the whole year hovers around 35 degrees Celsius, and daytime highs in the hot season climb far past that. There is almost no rain. The air is thick with salt and sulphur. To spend a day out here is to feel your body work against you, the heat pressing down, the light glaring off the salt so fiercely that even sunglasses barely help. And yet people not only pass through here, they live and work here, which we will come to, because it is one of the most human parts of this alien story. But the Danakil is not just hot and low. It is alive in a way most landscapes are not. It sits on top of one of the most violent geological engines on Earth, and the strangest single spot in the whole basin has a name that sounds almost gentle: Dallol. Dallol is a hydrothermal field, which is a scientific way of saying that superheated water loaded with salt and acid and dissolved minerals is being pushed up from deep underground and spilling out onto the surface. When that water reaches the air, it evaporates and reacts, and it leaves behind terraces and pools painted in colors that look completely artificial. Brilliant canary yellow from sulphur, green and white from salts, streaks of orange and red from iron. Little chimneys and domes of mineral grow up around the vents, so the ground looks less like rock and more like something biological, something grown rather than formed. And these pools are not just strange to look at, they are chemically ferocious. Many of them are intensely acidic, with a measured acidity around pH 0, which is about as acidic as liquids on Earth ever get, roughly comparable to battery acid. Some are hypersaline, so packed with salt that they are far saltier than the sea, and some are close to boiling. Acid, salt, and heat all at once, in the same shimmering little pond. It is the kind of place where the ordinary rules of what a landscape should look like simply stop applying. Now, not far from Dallol, the planet does something even more dramatic. It opens up and shows you its molten interior. Rising out of the desert is a volcano called Erta Ale, a name that in the local Afar language means, fittingly, the smoking mountain. Erta Ale is a shield volcano, broad and low, and it holds one of the rarest features on the entire surface of the Earth, a lava lake. Not lava that erupts once and cools and hardens, but a lake of molten rock that stays liquid, churning and glowing, more or less permanently. There are only a handful of long-lived lava lakes anywhere in the world, and Erta Ale has hosted one for a very long time. To stand at its rim, especially at night, is to look straight down into a pool of glowing orange and black, a raw crust of cooling rock cracking and shifting over the incandescent heat below, with fountains of molten rock splashing up from the depths. It is the planet's furnace, left uncovered in the middle of one of its hottest deserts. So why is all of this happening here, in this one small corner of Ethiopia? The answer is the deepest reason the Danakil feels like an alien world. It is because, geologically, it is a piece of the Earth in the act of tearing itself apart. The Danakil Depression sits almost exactly where three great pieces of the planet's crust meet and pull away from each other. Three tectonic plates moving apart at a place geologists call a triple junction. As they separate, the crust between them stretches, thins, and cracks. It sinks lower and lower, which is why the whole basin sits below sea level, and molten rock from deep inside the Earth rises up through the fractures. That rising heat is what feeds Erta Ale's lava lake and drives Dallol's acid springs. This is not a stable landscape, it is a landscape in motion being actively pulled open. And over a vast stretch of time, far longer than human history, the process is expected to continue until the land drops far enough for the sea to break in and flood it. In a very real sense, the Danakil Depression is one of the places on Earth where you can stand and watch a new ocean slowly beginning to be born. Not in a lifetime, not in 1,000 lifetimes, but the machinery is running right there under your feet. And here is where the story turns from geology to the deepest question of all. Can anything live in a place like this? For a long time, the honest answer was that scientists were not entirely sure. The pools of Dallol are, on paper, about as hostile as an environment can get. Extreme heat, extreme acidity, and extreme salt stacked on top of one another. Any one of those is a serious challenge for life. All three together push right up against the known limits of what living things can tolerate. And so the Danakil became a natural laboratory for one of the most fascinating fields in modern science, the study of extremophiles, the microscopic organisms that thrive in conditions that would instantly destroy almost anything else. In many parts of the region, life absolutely does hang on. There are microbes, tiny single-celled organisms that live in the salty, acidic, mineral-rich waters and crusts, quietly making a living in chemistry that would kill you or me in moments. These are some of the toughest life forms known, and studying them tells us something profound about just how wide the boundaries of life can be. But some of the most extreme little pools at Dallol appear to be a step too far. Careful research has suggested that in certain of these ponds, where the combination of acid, salt, and heat reaches its absolute peak, there may be no active life at all. Not because the tools failed to find it, but because the chemistry itself may simply forbid it. And that is a genuinely important scientific idea. It means the Danakil is not just a showcase of how far life can stretch. It may also mark a real edge, a place where we can point and say, here, perhaps, is a corner of Earth where the conditions finally win. This is still an area of active research, and scientists are careful about it. But the very fact that the question is open tells you how extreme this landscape truly is, which is exactly why the Danakil matters far beyond Ethiopia. Because a place that is hot, salty, acidic, and volcanically active, a place that sits at the very boundary of what life can and cannot do, is one of the best models we have on this planet for conditions on other worlds. Researchers studying whether life could ever exist on early Mars or in the hidden environments of distant moons come here to test their ideas and their instruments against the real thing. When you are trying to understand how to search for life in a place you cannot visit, the next best option is to study the most alien place you actually can reach. And the Danakil, with its acid springs and its lava lake and its endless salt, is about as close as the Earth gets to another planet. Every sample taken here, every measurement of how these microbes cope, feeds directly into a bigger question that reaches far beyond this basin. If life can survive conditions this savage on our own world, where else in the universe might it be quietly holding on? And yet, for all its hostility, this landscape is not empty of people. This is one of the most striking things about the whole region. Across the vast salt flats of the Danakil, where crusts of salt stretch flat and white to the horizon, the Afar people have worked for centuries doing something that looks almost impossible in this heat. They mine salt by hand. Using simple tools, they cut the salt crust into neat, heavy blocks, load them onto camels and donkeys, and lead long caravans across the shimmering plain toward the highlands, where the salt has long been valued and traded. It is grinding, punishing labor done in some of the most brutal conditions on Earth, and it has been carried on in much the same way for generation after generation. The image of a line of camels crossing that blinding white expanse under that ferocious sun is one of the oldest and most human scenes you will find anywhere, and it happens in the middle of what looks, in every photograph, like the surface of another world. So let's step back and take it all in. The Danakil Depression sits far below sea level in one of the hottest places anywhere on Earth. It is stitched together from acid springs glowing in impossible colors, from a rare permanent lake of molten rock, from salt flats that stretch to the edge of sight, and from the slow, unstoppable pulling apart of 3 great pieces of the planet's crust. It is home to some of the toughest life we know of, and it may also hold small corners where even the toughest life cannot go. It teaches us about the limits of biology. It stands in for other planets in the search for life beyond Earth, and it supports an ancient way of human survival that endures against all odds. Almost every quality that makes a place feel alien is here, gathered together in one basin, and all of it is real, all of it documented, none of it exaggerated. That is perhaps the most remarkable thing of all. We tend to imagine that to find something truly strange, something that looks like it belongs on another world, we would have to leave our own. But we do not. The Danakil Depression is right here, on the same planet as forests and oceans and cities, quietly doing something that no fiction could improve upon. It is showing us, in real time, a piece of the Earth being unmade and remade. A place where the ground bleeds acid and glows with fire, and where the very question of whether life can survive is still, in places, being answered. So here is what we would love to hear from you. Of everything the Danakil holds, which part unsettles you the most? The acid pools where perhaps nothing at all can live, the permanent lake of molten rock, or the fact that this whole basin is slowly splitting open to make a new ocean? Tell us in the comments. And if this changed the way you picture our own planet, stay with us. Because the Earth is stranger and more alive than almost anyone imagines.